Hello, BookTube. The last couple of days, I've been taking a lead from Michael K Vaughan. I'll leave a link to his channel down below where he did a video exploring some of the things that are lurking at the bottom of his Kindle. Books that he hasn't looked at in a long time and that he is compelled to look at now because he's doing CriminOlly's Satanic Challenge, where he urges you, tells you, orders you to read 100 of the books that you have that you haven't read before you buy a single other book. A lot of you have jumped on board this, probably feeling bad about how many unread books you have. And my response is twofold. My first response is, of course, it is the duty of every reader to mindlessly accumulate more books than they can read in 10 lifetimes. My second response is less welcome. I feel like a broken wheel when I'm just canting this out over and over again, which is that one other approach that you could take to reading the unread but bought books that you own in proportion to the books that you buy new would be to exercise self-control. I know, absolutely pointless. But in solidarity, I went looking for stuff for things that are lurking in my own Kindle. And in my own case, I wasn't using a Kindle. I was using the Kindle app on my iPad because I understand the appeal of the e-ink and the compatibility and the fact that Kindles never run out of power, just never. I've had that happen. I used to have an old first-generation Kindle, and you put it away somewhere in a cabinet or something. You forget about it, literally for half a year. Then you're looking in that cabinet for something else. You come across it, and you say, boy, if I plug this in, I wonder if it could still take a charge. You open it, and it hasn't lost its power yet. It's still at 31, 41, 61%. After all that time. They never run out of a charge. You can go forever. I have them. And I understand their appeal, but for me, I like the full, bright color of the tablet better. So I've been looking, for a couple of days now, I've been looking at books that were lurking on that app. And one of you sent me an email. You know who you are. One of you sent me an email and said, this is all interesting, and please do a video like this every day, but we want to see, I think referred to the sender and her sister, 100% sure, maybe she's in conjunction with a whole bunch of the rest of you. She said, we want to see books that are actually on your Kindle. And if you don't comply with our demand, we will tell everybody we know to subscribe to your channel. I want to point out how utterly warped that is. This is a warped channel that you people are threatening me with subscriptions as opposed to not subscribing. But B, my second response to this, I will do it. I always adhere to the shrill demands of my viewers, but I can't do it literally in this video. I have taken great pains to port things over. I took out my Kindle Paperwhite. This is the old Paperwhite, not the brand new Paperwhite is a Kindle Oasis killer. It is, by all accounts, an amazing, amazing device. Slightly bigger screen, better battery time, better responsivity, better screen resolution. The only thing it doesn't have that, for instance, the bigger Kindle Oasis has is the ergonomic grip. But it looks almost identical to the original Kindle Paperwhite, which is what this is. And I went and found this, of course, and I opened it. And, see, it's charging right away. It's got plenty of power. God knows when I charged this thing last time. I don't even know where the charging cord is for this. But... And I did that thinking, okay, I'll accede to your demands, because I'll accede to your demands, and I will show you book by book a few books on the Kindle Paperwhite. And boy, oh boy, am I glad that I tested it beforehand, because like I said, I recognize the appeal of a device that just wants you to read and not to bounce around, that wants you to just concentrate on reading. And I understand. I believe completely the stories I've heard from lots of you that is a complete game changer, that you absolutely love it for that reason. But the pictures, the cover images are in black and white. Moving from one to the other when I was trying it as a practice run on camera takes about 15 minutes each. It takes forever to cycle between one image and another, between one file and another. And half the time, you think you're filing to the next thing when the Kindle thinks you're asking, oh, you want to look at this book? Okay, let me open it for you. And you're saying, no, 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 I don't. And saying, oh, you don't want to open this book? Well, hold your horses. Let me close it again. Now, what is it that you wanted to... I understand that that kind of pokiness is actually a selling point for these things. It is part and parcel of the reading experience that causes you to just hunker down with a book. And I salute them for that. But it's not going to work for a video. So I hope that you won't follow through with your vicious threat, because I went and found books on this Kindle that are not anywhere else, and I went and got cover images to put them on a far more responsive device, this $10 mini tablet that I got online. This is ONN. It's $10. It's the very best technology that the Korean gray market can supply. No, I think this was actually a Kmart. Yeah, this was ONN makes this for Kmart or Walmart or something like that. And it comes with, believe it or not, a Walmart skin on it, with the latest Walmart deals and the latest books that Walmart is trying to push and whatnot. And I thought when I got it, well, surely it'll be easy to root. It'll be easy to make it into a responsive little tablet. But then it stymied me at first. I needed expert tech help to come here to Hyde Cottage and tell me that it works just fine. You don't even need to root it. It's got the Google Play Store on it. So you don't even need to root the device. You can just put whatever you want on it. I did that, and for $10, it's a fine device. In fact, far less finicky than my iPad mini, and a better size. The iPad mini is just a little bit wider than this. Just a tiny bit wider, but it makes a difference. That fraction of an inch makes a difference, because with the iPad mini, I cannot grip it in my hand like this. When I'm gripping it on one side, my fingers are touching the screen, which is causing the screen to do something. Whereas with this thing, I can simply hold it in my hand, like a phablet. So I transferred the cover images so that not only can I move between them in sometime this year, but also so that you get the full color. I hope that's enough to escape the threat that was made, to tell all your friends to subscribe to this boring, weird channel. So I have a few books that I want to show you, and the first one, as you saw already, is Jane Seville. This is Zero at the Bone. The little boy there with a halo around his head also has scrubs on, because this is a story of a young doctor, a beautiful young doctor, who sees a crime committed by the mafia that he shouldn't see, and is therefore too dangerous a witness to leave alive. So they send a beautiful hitman, a rugged, beautiful hitman, to wipe out the doctor. But something comes between them, and it's not his .357 Magnum. Instead, they start to bring out the best in each other. They start to feel a connection for each other. First, as desperation. Of course, the doctor is desperate anyway, but the hitman wants to leave his life and doesn't like the idea of killing an innocent person. And then camaraderie, and then something more develops between them. This is one of many entries on today's collection of books that is for the gays. I found that there is a gigantic bounty of books like this that are, I hesitate to call them cute little stories, because that sounds like I'm insulting the author, and I'm not. I know it takes work to make one of these things, but you can find, whether it's gay or straight or Western or paranormal or science fiction or whatever, you can find a million of these things. A million of them. They're full-length novels. They're 250 pages long. They have a plot. They have characters and sub-characters and whatnot. But oftentimes, you can find a billion of them for free. I haven't read this one yet. I've had it for years. I got it, I think, because it was free, and I haven't not read it. But I will correct that. This next one I have read. I have read this more than once. This is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. This is the old Wordsworth classic that was the mods. Lewis and Allie Mamrod did a translation of Tolstoy that Tolstoy approved of. He liked it. I like it too. I think it's just fine. That fantasy character on the cover is supposed to be Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte did not look like that when he was in the saddle. He did not look like that when he was out of the saddle. He was 4 feet tall. but this was, I think, also free. I think that there was a time when this was just offered free. I'm assuming that a lot of these were. I try not to pay for books online. any more than I try to pay for them in person. I'm such a prima donna. I keep expecting these things will just come to me for free. This next one is The League of Rogues, #1. This is a Regency romance, Wicked Designs, by Lauren Smith. Nice, big, opulent cover. You've got, is that snow-covered branches in the background? Yes, it is. Snow-covered branches in the background, a carpeted staircase. Look at the size of her dress. And this is, if I remember correctly, the story of the main character is very much the man. Here, a dissolute duke who has a he's young, even though he's a duke, and he has a reputation for being a debaucher and a horrible rake. And I imagine this will be a redemption story. But I've had this for years and have not read it. And this next one has a cover that I don't recognize. I know the book. I know the book well. You could say every line of it well. This is Time and Tide by Frank Conroy, the author of Stop Time and Body and Soul. And this is a book about Nantucket, which he fell in love with in the 1950s when he got to know it in a large and rambunctious group of friends. That's when it first made his appeal to him. He learned a lot about himself with those friends. He learned a lot of bad habits and opened the door to lots of other bad habits. And also writes like an angel. And I don't have a print copy of this book. Amazingly, I don't. I don't know if this is an ebook of a new print edition that has that cover with the driftwood and all. I don't know if that's true or if this is just an ebook cover. But I have read this book. I am intimately familiar with every line of this book. I'm intimately familiar with the rough drafts of every line of this book, and it is great. Those of you who maybe are looking for a location writing or whatnot, or maybe want a nice quick introduction to this author and don't want to deal with a long memoir or a long novel, you could do worse than to download this. Probably the ebook is very cheap. And those of you who maybe don't know what I'm talking about, Nantucket is a lovely island off the coast of Massachusetts. It's not as close. There's an island called Martha's Vineyard that's much closer. You no sooner sit down on the ferry to Martha's Vineyard and open a bag of chips than the ferry is pulling in. Nantucket is much farther out than that. And it's a place you can fall in love with. And if you do, then you're going to fall in love with it in all seasons. Nantucket in the middle of winter, back when winter meant something, was a real thing. It was a real experience. And this is a beautifully evocative book. I really should have a copy of it. I don't. Of all the books on this list, I really should have a copy of this, and I don't. Then this next one is not nearly as good, literarily speaking. This is Quest of the Spider. It's a Doc Savage novel. That is Doc Savage on the cover. Clark Savage is a fascinating pulp character, one of the two most famous pulp characters, him and the Shadow. But whereas the Shadow gained his ability to read the minds of men and cloud the minds of men and blend into the shadows, in the Hidden Kingdom, where his origin story is one of being handed gifts, whereas Clark Savage makes himself into the Man of Bronze. He makes himself into an absolute marvel. 6'5", stronger than anyone, faster than anyone, smarter than anyone. And just goes on having lots of adventures. And he is sort of this gigantic mountain peak. And he surrounds himself with a team of various experts. Each one of them will have expertise in some field or a couple of fields. Each one of them will have some characteristic. One is very strong, one is very dapper, one is very daring. And you get to know them. The Doc Savage novels are at least as much their adventures as Doc Savage's adventures. And the thing that you have to realize about his cohort of cronies there is that they are a counterpart to Doc Savage. Not any one of them, but all of them together. All of them together are not as capable as Doc Savage is. He knows more about their own specialties than they do. And needless to say, he's physically more incredible than any one of them or all of them put together. But they allow for more feet in the story. They allow for more hands in the story. They allow for more eyes in the story. They allow for a lot more moving X factors. One, I think it would be fair to say, no offense to the author's literary estate, that one Doc Savage novel is pretty much like another. There is no growth here at all. There is no enlarging melodrama. It's just that Doc Savage is this paragon. His men are a fun, interesting group of operatives, and they have one outre adventure after another. And apparently I have a number of Doc Savage novels on this Kindle. That's where this comes from. This one is number 68. Then we have the great Gina Showalter. She is a romance author. And this is Can't Hardly Breathe. Take a look at that cover. Good Lord. And this is a Gina Showalter. Gina Showalter is incredibly prolific as a romance author. I'm sure there are a bunch of her books on this shelf behind me. I haven't read this one, even though I'm pretty sure I got this download years ago. And this, I know the story. The story is these two were once lovers. Gina Showalter specializes in that. The two main characters were once lovers, and then the man left town, was a high-flying career as an army ranger or an expert of some kind or other, and she owns a bed and breakfast. She owns a hotel. And when he comes back into town, in Strawberry Valley, I think is the name of the location here, Strawberry Valley, Strawberry Cove, something like that, he comes back into town clearly thinking, well, he needs to take care of his ailing father. And in the meantime, when he's not taking care of his ailing father, whatever happens in Strawberry Valley stays in Strawberry Valley. He's thinking of it as sort of a romantic write-off where he can just raise hell because he's not going to stay. He knows he's not going to stay. Oh, I got a notification there. I didn't think that happened on this machine. And that brings them into that makes them clash again, because one of the places where he kicks up his heels is her hotel. And then, a second chance romance is going to bloom. Can't wait to get to it. It's been on my Kindle all this time. So in a sense, despite the extortionate threats, I am happy for seeing these things because I can get through them. This next one I've gotten to many, many times. This would be a reread. This is Elsbreg de Camp and Lynn Carter. This is Conan of the Isles. The great, is that a Boris cover? Yes, Boris Vallejo, a great Boris Vallejo cover. You can't really make it out here, but that creature that Conan and his crewmate are looking at is not human. It's not anymore, anyway. And this is, oh my, Michael Vaughan would probably know better than I would, or Mark would. This is late in the series of novels that Elsbreg de Camp did of the Conan books, and stories. Elsbreg de Camp and Lynn Carter sort of took hold of that corpus of work and faithfully reproduced some of it, padded others of it, rewrote others of it to create these old Ace paperbacks, just a whole shelf of Ace paperbacks with great Boris Vallejo artwork. That I believe, this was very late in that series of books, and it might even been the last one. And that series of books they made Robert E. Howard fans howl. Because they're not faithful to the canon at all. They do violence to the canon. Except, I would argue, in spirit. But, yes, okay, they might make Robert E. Howard fans howl. But they also made Robert E. Howard fans. They turned lots of people into Robert E. Howard fans, into Conan fans, who would never have known of it otherwise. These mass market paperbacks were really attractive looking, and they were in the spinner racks and bookstores everywhere. And there was one regularly for years. Now, in order to do that with what is a relatively small corpus of original material, you have to do violence to the books. And I don't agree with that at all, but I can't discount these things. They introduced a huge, huge number of people to Conan. They made a huge number of Robert E. Howard fans that didn't exist before. And that I think can probably be relied upon to go back and look at the provenance of the books they fell in love with. They're not going to be permanently damaged. Okay, then we have another thing for the gays. This is Escorting the Escort by Liz M. And again, this is a book that I have not read, but it's the story of a paid escort who has a driver, and the driver takes him from one John to the next, and in the course of the book, the boy and the driver fall in love. The driver falls in love with the boy first, if I remember correctly. from a description that I would have read years ago. They eventually discover a bond with each other in the least likely, setting imaginable, and with the least likely type of thing imaginable. We'll see. We'll see if anything comes of it. I mean, no pun intended. I will give it a read today or tomorrow and see if it's anything more than one of those little completely disposable stories that I don't want. I have to come up with another word for them. Light fiction, maybe, would be the thing. Because I don't want to disparage the authors. I know that these things are the product of a lot of work. Just not a whole lot of depth any more than any other romance would be. You're sacrificing depth, usually, for enjoyment. That's a fair bargain, in my opinion. Then this next one, well, it's not romance. This is Essays in Idleness and Hojoki. And this is translated by Meredith McKinney. This is the Penguin Classic, Essays in Idleness. And these are medieval Japanese Buddhist ramblings. I have these. I know I have read Essays in Idleness in a different translation. Hojoki I may not have read at all. But I've read Essays in Idleness. There have been a couple of English translations. I've read a couple of them. I've read lots of essays about it as well. But I don't know that I've ever read this Penguin edition. I don't know that I've ever read the introduction that I'm sure goes with it. So it gets bumped right to the front. I mean, it'll be largely hokum, but what hokum? I will be okay with that. And I think this is the last one. No, we've got plenty more to go. This next one is a cowboy romance. Or as Sarah from the Bookish Knitter would say, a cowboy romance. Because she goes all noodly when she's reading contemporary cowboy romances. And there's some element of this cover that also made me go noodly. I can't quite tell what it is. Can't quite put my finger on it. This is A Cowboy's Strength by Vicki Lewis Thompson. Maybe it's the animal in the background, that horse's patoot in the background. Maybe that's what got me all noodly. But this is, as you can see, a McGavin Brothers novel. I don't know anything about this series. Don't have any idea how many McGavin Brothers there are or what their story is. It's got to be a contemporary cowboy romance because they didn't have Soloflex in the 1800s. But other than that, this was probably one of those things where it was free. And so I just got it. I mean, like I mentioned yesterday, if you look around on Amazon, you can find lots and lots of free books that aren't necessarily canonical classics. And this next one is another one for the gays. This is by Neve Wilder. This is Center of Gravity. Oh no, it's too bright. There we go. And I think I remember the storyline here, which is that a man. This is Nook Island, book 1. No idea if there have been other Nook Island novels. I seem to remember the man here the main character has to go back to this island, board up and dispense with the family cabin. And he is wounded and bitter, and life has treated him terribly, and he's thinking this is just one more tedious errand that he has to do. And I think he falls for one of the moving boys doing the moving and suddenly has a second chance at happiness, a chance at a new door opening, which seems to be a theme with a lot of the things that we're looking at today. Okay, this one I believe is the last one. Yes, this is the last one. And I guess you could say that doors open in this thing too, but not romance. Not romance. This is Alexander Cant. This is Richard Bolitho, Midshipman. There you have a great man of war there. This is a book that Alexander Cant wrote, these Napoleonic era seafaring adventure novels about Richard Bolitho. That's his main character. And he did these books very much in the vein of Forster's Hornblower novels, the Horatio Hornblower novels. Not just in terms of following the main character through all kinds of adventures, shipwrecks, mutinies, famous battles, fictional battles, all that sort of thing. Not just that, but also in the same way that Forster wrote his Hornblower novels. Forster wrote his Hornblower novels. He started in Media Res. He started just in the middle of things. And then once the series became popular, he found that it behooved him not only to move the story forward all the way to Hornblower being a lord, but also to write novels in the past as well, with Midshipman Hornblower and Hornblower during the Mutiny and all that sort of things. So the Hornblower novels have a very different, the chronological sequence is very different from the publication sequence. Those are completely different things. And unlike, for instance, in the Patrick O'Brian, Aubrey and Maturin books, which start with our two main characters meeting each other and follow them. There are no flashback novels there. But here, Alexander Cant went once his Bolitho novels were successful, he went back and started filling in places in Bolitho's life and career. And I believe this is one of those. I don't think that Midshipman Bolitho was the first book in the series by a long shot. I think, again, there would be other, but Mark would probably know better. I think Passage to Peril or Colors Aloft or something like that, where I think we start when he's just about a captain. But I haven't read Richard Bolitho Midshipman in probably 20 years. I had no idea at all that I had an ebook of it, none whatsoever. I no idea where it came from, but I will definitely get to it. Yes, okay, that is the ending of this on this little Walmart tablet. And those are more things found on my Kindle. And those actually were found on my Kindle. I just had to move them because the Kindle won't let me maneuver. The Kindle is an 18th century piece of technology. It's designed just for you to read on. Hats off to it for that, but that doesn't make for good booktube. Anyway, I'm going to go sit down, but I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.